On behalf of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, I'd like to welcome you to this program. My name is Naomi Kohler, and I'm the director of the Simon Skjodt Center for the Prevention of Genocide. Our center was created to do for communities today what was not done for the Jews of Europe during the Holocaust. Today, we're gathered with Holocaust survivors and Rohingya survivors to reflect on the significance of the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken's determination today that the Burmese military committed genocide and crimes against humanity against the Rohingya people. Today is a solemn day. It is one where we have to reckon with the reality that we failed to respond to the warning signs that genocide was imminent. The US government has made 6 genocide determinations prior to this. They did so in the case of Bosnia in 1993, Rwanda in 1994, Iraq 1995, Darfur 2004, areas under the control of ISIS in 2016 and 2017, and the Uyghurs most recently in 2021. There is no formal process for making determinations. And as our conversation today will show, the crimes that we're talking about are crimes that occurred 6 years ago. 5 years ago, the US led a groundbreaking investigation into the nature of the violence, sending investigators to Bangladesh to interview over 1,000 survivors of the crimes perpetrated on August 25th, 2017, and in the days and weeks afterwards. But they also documented, and as we as a museum have documented, that the crimes perpetrated against the Rohingya people extend far beyond that day and those events. They extend to decades of persecution that created an environment in which genocide could take place. Many may think that today is merely a symbolic act. It is not. It has much more meaning, as we will see in our conversation today, and it also is a clarion call for action to prevent future crimes against the Rohingya community and others, and to advance justice. It is my deep honor to introduce Holocaust survivor and museum volunteer, Louise Lawrence Israel.
Good morning. My name is Louise Lawrence Israels. I'm a Holocaust survivor and long-time museum volunteer. I'm honored to be with you today when Secretary Blinken announced that genocide has occurred against the Rohingya people in Burma. It is an extraordinary positive step, but one that fills me with profound sadness, that we must reckon yet again with the world's failure to prevent genocide. After all that we know about what happened to the Jews of Europe, how is it that communities throughout the world are still being persecuted simply for who they are? How have we not yet learned the lessons that history provides for us? My country, the Netherlands, was invaded and occupied by the Nazis in May 1940. I was born in 1942 in Haarlem, just before deportations of Jews from the Netherlands to the death camps in Poland began. When I was 6 months old, we received orders to relocate to Amsterdam. It was there, to escape deportation, that my father, with the help of the Dutch resistance, secured a secret hiding place for us and false documents with new identities. I received a new name, Maria. For nearly 3 years, our family of 4 lived in a tiny attic with little access to food, water, medicine, and other essentials. My father was the only one who ventured outside. We did have some frightening moments, but our parents were always with us to comfort and protect us. This was not so for millions of others. Eventually, we were liberated by the Canadian Army in 1995. For my parents, there was but one thought during the horrible years of the Nazi occupation: trying to keep their 2 children safe. Although we were able to rebuild our lives, my parents continued to worry about our safety for the rest of their lives, fearing that something terrible would happen again. Well, something terrible happened, over and over again, this time to other people. Genocide and mass atrocities have not stopped occurring after the Holocaust. Think about Cambodia, Bosnia, Rwanda, Darfur, Syria, the Uyghurs in China, and the Rohingya people in Burma. It is humbling to share the stage with other survivors of genocide and mass atrocities today. I am inspired by their resilience, strength, and determination to speak out against their persecutors and tell the world the truth of what is happening. We are grateful that our government has made this pronouncement, but it is tragic that circumstances made it necessary. I became a volunteer at the museum, an institution which inspires citizens and leaders worldwide to confront hatred, prevent genocide, and promote human dignity in order to make a difference. By sharing my story, I hope to educate young people and leaders on the consequences of unchecked hatred and anti-Semitism. I, alongside our Rohingya friends and colleagues, are united by the same spirit to learn from the past and to seek a future where we can truly fulfill the promise of never again.
Thank you, Louise, for your incredibly powerful and beautiful remarks and for reminding us why we are here today. So many people have been involved in making today happen, those working within the U.S. government, Rohingya leaders and advocates, civil society from around the world. We are very honored to be joined by 3 of the museum's beloved partners who we have had the honor of working with for many years. Chun Kin was born and brought up in Arakan State, Burma. His grandfather was a parliamentary secretary during the democratic period of Burma. Although well-established and respected, alongside 1 million other ethnic Rohingya, Chun Kin was rendered stateless by a 1982 nationality law that excluded the Rohingya from a list of groups considered indigenous and therefore eligible for Burmese nationality. He is the president of the Burmese Organization of the UK, which has been a leading voice for the Rohingya people around the world. Wei Wei Nu emerged from 7 years as a political prisoner as a teenager to become a human rights advocate and the founder of 2 organizations, the Women Peace Network and Yangon Youth Center. Through the Women Peace Network, Wei Wei works to build peace and mutual understanding between Myanmar's ethnic communities and to empower marginalized women throughout Myanmar, particularly in Rakhine State, to advocate for their rights. To engage youth in the peace-building process, Wei Wei also founded the Yangon Youth Center, a space where young people from diverse backgrounds come together to learn, share, and explore ideas, and to promote leadership in social, political, and peace-building policymaking. Previously, Wei Wei worked for Justice for Women in Yangon, a legal organization. Yasmin Ullah is an independent Rohingya social justice activist who collaborates with different organizations on advocacy, media, and building alliances with young people from Myanmar. She was born in northern Rakhine State of Myanmar. Her family fled to Thailand in 1995 when she was a child, and she remained a stateless refugee until moving to Canada in 2011. Yasmin has served as the president of the Rohingya Human Rights Network, a nonprofit group led by activists across Canada advocating and raising public awareness about the Rohingya genocide. She was a research coordinator for the Free Rohingya Coalition, a global network of Rohingya activists and friends of Rohingyas who share common concerns about Myanmar's genocide and the need for Rohingya survivors to play an active and central role in seeking a viable future for their community. It's a deep honor to be here with each of you today. And we wanted to start really with just a very personal question on what today's determination means for each of you. Maybe, Yasmin, I'll start with you.
Thank you very much, Naomi, for that very kind introduction. I think the honor is ours to be able to be here and witness today determination in person. What today means, I know that all of us, including colleagues outside of this room, have been working extremely hard to get to where the world knows who Rohingya are, where we're from, what happened to us. And I think it humanizes us in a way. The genocide has stripped away all of our human dignities. And one of the things that the genocide determination has done today is to encourage and to reassure victims of genocide everywhere, especially those who have fled to Bangladesh, those who are still stuck in Rakhine State, those who are currently suffering multiple layers of prosecution all over the regional, of the entirety of Asia, that they did not just go crazy. They did not imagine this happening to them. It was real. And their pain is very much valid. That is, I think, the most powerful thing a human can hand to another person, that the genocide determination essentially tells us you are deserving of human dignity, you are deserving to be treated, to be loved, to be part of this global community as much as anyone else. And that is what I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life.
To be seen as human.
Yes.
Chun Kin, what does it mean for you?
Thank you, Naomi, invited me at this event and organizing this such an important event and historic day for the Rohingya people, where we are waiting for a long time to see this determination, because I grew up in Arsa State, western part of Burma. So I left when I was my age was 17. I do not exist like me. 3 million Rohingya does not exist. That is what Burmese military and the government said. And they denied my identity. They denied right to have education for me, including. Particularly, I couldn't go to the university. I left from the country because of that. And I'm lucky here, like me, hundreds of thousands of Rohingya students, they couldn't go to the university. Their life been destroyed. It's been intentionally. They did that. And they've taken away our ethnic rights. They've taken away our identity. They've taken away our lands. So many years we've been suffered, and we have seen in Bangladesh, 2017, mass killings, mass graves. Finally, we've been advocating for a long time, US and other governments, call it what I suffered, call it what I have faced, call it what it should be called. Finally, today, US government decided it's genocide. This such a great day for the Rohingya, and my brothers and sisters, I'm missing them from the camps. They remind me when I visited there. US government is playing a key role in international arena. Please pass our message to call it what we suffered is genocide. Just call it what we faced, what we have faced. So finally that's happened. It's a great moment. And I'm looking forward to see actions from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Toon Kin. Just for also underscoring, genocide is the intentional intent to destroy a people on the basis of their identity, a process that is taken, calculated, and as you said today, recognizes that that is what the Burmese military was doing. Wei Wei, what does it mean for you today?
Thank you very much, Naomi, for all your work and the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum's Center for the Prevention of Genocide's work. Without your work, this day wouldn't have been possible. We all deeply thank you all, as well as all other organizations and individuals work along with us, help us to get to where we are today as a first step to really bring justice for our people. And it's always an honor to hear from you, Louise. We are very privileged to have you here today. For these determinations means a lot for our community, for Rohingya, and for our common future. Feeling and seeing the world superpower country finally recognize our suffering and our struggle means so much. As my colleagues have said, we've been waiting for this for a long time. Being ignored of our pains and suffering left us with hopelessness and trauma as a community, because as you mentioned, when genocide, in the genocidal process, they target you for who you are, and they basically try to destroy your existence itself. For our community, it's like that we were not only targeted for physical and mental abuses, but also our existence itself was denied. Therefore, our suffering was denied in Myanmar. And at the same time, we felt like the world, the international community, has minimized and ignored our suffering. So today, these determinations brings us hope, and I hope that it's opened further doors for us to really restore our human dignity and our rights and bring justice and accountability for our people. We felt like at some point, as my colleagues has mentioned, all of us has been trying to get recognitions for our suffering and to bring justice for our people and calling the international community to recognize our suffering and to support us to be able to overcome from this genocide. But in the past 10 years of my activism, and a lot of the time I felt like our voice wasn't heard. Our asks were unanswered. Our calls were dismissed. And finally, this is a big relief. And just one last point, I was just reading messages from my colleagues in Rakhine and Bangladesh, the women that I work with. They said that we are crying, and now we feel like we can breathe. This means a lot.
Thank you so much for each of your reflections on this. I think it is sobering that it has taken so many years. And as an institution, we really do think it is critically important that when these crimes happen, they are documented, they are called out, and action is taken to stop them. Today, you mentioned your colleagues in Rakhine. There are over 600,000 Rohingya who remain in Rakhine. They continue to face a risk of genocide. There are close to 1 million Rohingya who live as refugees in Bangladesh and elsewhere, who fled different waves of violence. They can't return home because there is a risk of genocide. So often when we talk about genocide determinations, the focus is on getting the determination as though that is the end goal. And the reality, as you have said, is that is a recognition of your suffering. That is there to help establish a historical record. That is there to prevent genocide denial. That should be there as a signal to perpetrators that they must cease their attacks, that they will be held accountable. Today is one stop along a long journey, but one in which we have to see a real redoubling of efforts. For each of you, given the realities today, what needs to happen next? What does the world need to know in order to protect your community going forward? Maybe I'll start with you, Tunken.
First thing, it is very important a step forward for justice and accountability. When we've been suffering so long, like especially international community well known what's happened 2017, mass killings and mass graves, we have seen that justice is one of the important things. First, to move forward for the justice, US governments and other international bodies should have to move forward to support. We have Gambia cases, Gambia filed it, and US should join that ICJ case. And we have a case in Argentina also, more universal jurisdiction case. We have to use all avenues. What is same thing? UN fact-finding mission, when they found it 2018, they mentioned all the avenues we have to use for the justice and accountability to bring these military criminals to be held, what they have done. And also ICC referral through UN Security Council, that is also important step now, because 600,000 Rohingyas, we're talking about past, what happened to the Rohingya genocide, but 600,000 Rohingya, until today, they are ongoing genocide. Their lives are at risk. And currently, military coup leader, he is the person who is architect of genocide. Anytime, military can attack these 600,000 Rohingyas. So we need protection. We need justice and accountability. And we need rebuilding the survivors, where 1 million population in camp, 40% are children there. So these are all important things we have to focus on, and international community should focus same time justice and accountability, protection and rebuilding these genocide survivors, especially young Rohingya children are without education in camp. 4 years now. What will be our future? We cannot let what military intentionally destroy in our community. We cannot let move forward destruction of this community. We have to stop. We have to move forward to rebuild this community by any means we can.
Protect, rebuild, advance justice. And you said in particular that you'd like to see the U.S. become party to the International Court of Justice case that the Gambia has brought against Burma. And that is a case that is looking into whether or not genocide was committed. We did hear today the Secretary of State commit considerable additional funding to the exactly to the UN investigative mechanism, which is incredibly important. And we know the pursuit of justice is going to be a long pursuit. It will take decades. But I'm heartened, even today, even now, 80 years after the Holocaust, we still do see some Nazi perpetrators being held responsible. And you're all testament to the fact that the community will not give up until justice occurs. Wei, for you, what needs to be done now?
I mean, first of all, we have to remember that the genocide is ongoing in Myanmar. And many other international crimes are being committed against the other ethnic communities while genocide is ongoing against the Rohingya. 600,000 Rohingyas in Rakhine states are effectively living under prison-like condition. And about 130,000 Rohingyas are living in internment camps, in the internally displaced camps they call, but it's essentially an internment camps. And after the coup, after the coup last year, military has actually intensified all the genocidal policies against the Rohingya in Rakhine State, including abusive, dehumanizing family check-in processes, issuing this genocidal identity card, and penalizing Rohingya for traveling, and many other forms of abuses. Since the coup, military has actually detained over 900 Rohingya for escaping persecutions from Rakhine State, just attempting to leave Rakhine State, or a number of Rohingya returning back from Bangladesh. It shows that the intent that the secretary was saying this earlier this morning in his speak, the U.S. secretary was, we are still seeing the patterns, we're increasingly actually seeing the patterns and similar tactics that they have already used, and it has exacerbated, and looking at this one element of penalizing, arresting, and sentencing Rohingya who are going out and coming in shows everything, and the genocide is ongoing. And we cannot forget that. For us to stop that, we need to punish the military. We need to stop the military. We need to impose all the sanctions and actions against them. I'm so glad to hear that the Secretary General promises to further strengthen the accountability and justice processes. I hope that he will keep his promises and actually take leadership internationally, and at the UN, United Nations Security Council, adopt a resolution that include financial penalties against the militaries, as well as have an global arms embargo and a referral of the situations of Myanmar to the International Criminal Court. Without punishing the perpetrators of the genocide, we cannot actually protect the people on the ground. Right now, that is the most essential. And otherwise, I think it is crucial to provide support to the victim communities. I'm glad that there are a lot of funding allocated for the organizations, including the international independent mechanisms on Myanmar and on other purposes, but also it is important that the community is directly supported and community is empowered so that they can stand on themselves and they can protect themselves, and they can free from being extremely dependent on the INGOs and or other development organizations, humanitarian organizations. And I think while we talk about 600,000 remaining Rohingya in Rakhine, we also need to think about Rohingya community as a group for us to be able to free from the genocide. As a group, Rohingya around the world, and we are seeing that Rohingya diaspora, especially Rohingya refugees across the Asia, are facing so many forms, continue to face so many forms of discrimination and struggles, whether in Bangladesh or in India or in Malaysia or elsewhere. And all of this has to count as a part of the genocidal response. And unless we're able to address and see the issue in a holistic manner, and the community is being supported, and the community voice is heard and count, and respond, have a policy respond with the community voice, we might not be able to really strengthen, we might not be able to end the genocide. So I think these are some of the key points that I think need to be done. Punishing the military as well as supporting the community and listening to the communities and looking at the issue in a broader sense, the suffering of the community as a whole, across the world, as well as the entirety of the crimes, not just the incident that happened in 2016 and 17. That is only one episode of our suffering. We have to count all the entire generational trauma and persecutions of our people.
Thank you, Wei Wei. I want to just kind of reinforce a couple of the points that you just made. Today's determination should spur international action. The UN Security Council has abdicated its responsibility on this particular issue. And hopefully with this announcement today, it will bring renewed attention to the fact that the Security Council needs to be seized of this issue and has an array of options available to it. Similarly, spur Congress to act. The Burma Act, for example, is something that needs to be passed. Yasmin, Wei Wei was talking quite a lot about the importance of supporting the community and ensuring the community's voice is heard. I know that's something that you feel very strongly about. If I could ask for your thoughts.
Thank you. I believe that accountability, apart from litigation, apart from international law, apart from mechanism of justice that exist, there needs to be more accountability that is framed in a sense that is practical to the community. And one thing that has come up over and over again in this conversation and many others is the stolen identity, is the fact that our community has been forced to implode within itself, that our community has now become so destructive within itself, and there are ties that are severed, there are literature that are lost, culture that are being, completely forgotten. One way accountability can be realized is that the international community, by the leadership of the US, support, several different works in reviving some of those traditions, reviving some of those literature, reviving the idea, the culture that exists within the Rohingya community and uplift us, humanizing us in that way. We are not merely victims, desolate people that just need help all the time. We are people that have survived a genocide for 7 decades. We have not been here begging for people to help us without helping ourselves. The mothers, the 3 mothers whom the exhibition actually referred to, Jamila, Rabia, Arsa, all have done exemplary work to actually carry themselves and their children across the border. And that, we owe it to the mothers. We owe it to all the mothers in our community who've held down their fort and held down the community together to this day, despite all the sexual and gender-based violence that have been targeted against them. This is what uplifting means, is to support the people, listening to them, having them in every single room that matters, having them in every single table that talks about their lives, making decisions while actually actively listening to them and taking that into account. Those are going to be important steps. It sounds very abstract, and it sounds like, a lot of these are not very clear-cut like litigation, but without supporting that, without actually helping us humanizing ourselves after being dehumanized for a long time, we're not going to be able to see the community realize its full potential and full autonomy and rebuild ourselves. Because that is the most important thing, is to support us so that we can support ourselves long term, like my sister and my brother have said. Thank you.
Yasmin, not abstract at all. It lies at the core of what the future for your community is. It also, as Louisa mentioned, is very much core to how Holocaust survivors help to preserve a history that had in many parts of Europe been absolutely decimated, a language in some places that was lost. Rebuilt that over decades, as your community is doing, but as you said, as your community needs help in doing. and also needs help in dealing with the immense trauma, the intergenerational trauma that each of you carry and that young children are unfortunately being born into. The needs are significant, but I hope that with today's determination, we will see renewed focus, attention on each aspect of what each of you have called for, be it physical protection, the pursuit of justice, the support for rebuilding, for livelihoods, preservation of culture. Today is not the end point. Today is one stop along a very long journey and process that we and so many others hope to continue to be able to engage with you on, support you on, and join you in that particular process. Again, I'm sorry that we've had to come together, but at the same time, we're very heartened that the U.S. government made the determination today, and we believe that it will help hopefully change the course of your future and your community's future. Deep honor, as always, to join you and to be here with you in conversation. And I'd like to thank everyone who is joining us. You can learn more about each of their organizations online. I would encourage you to visit the online exhibit, Burma's Path to Genocide, which can be found on the Holocaust Museum's website, and to please make sure that the Rohingya community are not a forgotten people. This is not a forgotten genocide. Today is a day to make sure that their voices are heard and that everyone knows what has happened, what is happening, and what continues to be at risk. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.